Mike Detillier has been a guest on this show a million times and joins us now from New Orleans WWL Radio, creator of the M&D Draft Report. Talk a little NFL Draft. Mike, what's going on the Bayou?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm doing outstanding. So I'm ready for the draft and ready to kick it off.
Well, there's some high-profile LSU guys that we can start out with. And let's talk about the debate at quarterback. Who's the number 2 quarterback? Should it be Jayden Daniels, former LSU star?
The odds have changed. All of a sudden today, apparently it's him as the number 2 quarterback.
I told you a long time ago he was my number 2 quarterback. What's up?
Man, to me, it's Jayden Daniels, and it's not close.
Really?
No, listen, I ain't no homer. I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. Jayden Daniels, where he gets the nod over Drake May, is his ability to process progressions downfield, find his second and third targets. He does that much better than Drake May does. And secondly, you guys have watched LSU play a lot, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
How many untimely sacks have you seen Jayden Daniels go down? Not many.
Not many.
No.
You know what's interesting, Mike? I think you can almost point back to the Tennessee game the previous season.
That turned the corner for this team.
Yeah, where the head coach was like, look, man, you can't just look for guys that are high school open. Like, you've got to throw some 50-50 balls and let your guys. And so Slay was like kind of out on Jayden Daniels until that point. And he started to do that, and it completely changed him.
Yeah, and I look at Drake, and, man, physically, he's got all the tools. He's built along the lines of Justin Herbert. But, man, he takes some sacks sometimes that's unnecessary. Then you're going to get sacked in the pocket. That's just the way it is. Everybody makes a big thing because of his running skills, and he does run like a track sprinter, Jayden Daniels. I mean, Brian Branch trained down here, and he told me, I thought I had an angle on him one time. And he outran the angle. And he was right. Man, Jayden, he'll outrun those angles you think you got on him. But sometimes Drake will take an unnecessary sack, and that will drive a head coach crazy. So instead of a 3rd and 6, now you're dealing with a 3rd and 15. And, you know, in this league, you're going to see things thrown at you haven't seen at the collegiate level. And I just think the processing part for Jayden is quicker than Drake. His movement skills, his ability to improv in the pocket and outside the pocket, his running skills. Now, one thing I better tell him, and I have told him this, man, learn how to slide. Do not take that hit.
Yeah,
in this league.
There's a quarterback that plays for the Titans you need to have that conversation with, too.
And sometimes, one time in the Ole Miss game, man, they got a group of guys around him. He's running downfield. He jumps into the crowd and they level him.
I remember
and
that.
I'm like, oh, my goodness. But that's Jayden.
You remember that?
And he's never – his metabolism is working double overtime. You know, he came to the Manning camp, and we were having fun because, you know, they have so many people that were there to interview him. And he just saw me, and I said, listen, I'll come back and get you once the crowd sort of settles down. And he was like, okay. And so we sit down, we start talking. And I noticed he was a little bit heavier than what I saw him in the spring. And I just mentioned to him, I said, hey, you look a little heavier than I saw you the last time. And he said, yeah, you too, coach.
Great comeback.
And you know what he told me? He said, I weigh 210 pounds today. You look at LSU's pro day. He was, 212, 214? Mm-hmm. Man, and I know he's trying to do it. Man, I wish I had that issue that I couldn't put on weight. But for him, he's had some difficulties doing so. But great leader, very humble young man. He's not that type of beat your chest type individual. I know Coach Kelly told me I had to run him out of the film room. That, you know, he would have lived here. And I had to run him out of here because, you know, he wants to get better. Football means a lot to him. And I think, you know, him and Drake both have excellent opportunities here. I just think Jayden's the better prospect because of his mobility skills. But even more prevalent to me is his ability to process to find that second and third target downfield.
Okay, Mike, let me ask you this. Coming out of not this past year, the year before, I thought after the Tennessee game, things started to change a bit for LSU and also him as a quarterback. Now, walking into this year, I was out on him or had questions about him when they started talking about Heisman and he's going to be really good and all of this. And you came on this show, talked about him and what you were seeing behind the scenes and his work ethic and things of that nature, and you said he was going to be a different guy. And I was like, okay, well, let me sit back and see. I saw that this year. My question is, with Malik Nabors being who he was and Brian Thomas Jr. being who they were, did they, because they are guys, now they dogs is who they are, did he make them better or did they make him much better and we don't know if he elevates guys around him yet?
I think they both made each other better.
Okay.
My thing is, a year ago, if I'd asked you who Brian Thomas Jr. was, how much could you have told me?
Not much.
Yeah.
Not much.
Not much.
Yep. You're
Not
absolutely
much.
right. Yep.
Brian was and he got a little hot with, but I explained it to him. He was on the all potential team. Potential means you ain't done nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And he would get open, and every once in a while, man, he'd make a great play. Then he'd drop an easy one. Then he would turn his head up the field and drop a pass, and he was looking to run with it. What a lot of people didn't realize with Brian is a football puppy. He didn't start playing football until he was a junior in high school. Mm-hmm. He was a basketball player, track athlete. So all of a sudden, he hits the prep scene that junior year and then certainly as a senior. But I knew he wasn't ready for prime time. It would take him a little while to get used to things. He's not one step fast. He's two step fast. He puts that second step down. All you're looking at is the back of his cleats. And he's got 6'2.5" size. He's got length. He can reach out and catch the football. I thought he became much more confident catching the football this year and away from his body, catching the ball out with his hands. So I think working with Jayden in the offseason, and they worked a lot of time together one-on-one, I think certainly helped. It helped Brian, and it also gave Jayden a second option. We all knew about Malik.
Right.
Now, Malik's recruiting story is absolutely crazy because Malik changed high schools from his junior to his senior year and ruled ineligible. He could not play. In a year that was loaded with wide receivers in the state of Louisiana and also in Texas, he verbally committed to Mississippi State. He was not a first option for LSU, was not. And then one of these fast dudes from Texas decides he's not going to come to LSU. He's going to stay in the state of Texas. So Coach O and crew are scrambling. This is 2 days before the National Recruiting Signing Day. And they make an all-out assault to get Malik Nabors to change his mind and sign with LSU, and he did. The moment he hit that practice field for the first time, it popped in my head, and I'll say it today. And I don't like to comp people about players, but when I saw him for the first time, my thing is, man, we're looking at Jamar Chase. That's who he reminds me of.
So if Malik Nabors is sitting there at 7, the Titans have to take him.
He ain't sitting there at 8.
Yeah. Sheesh.
Get Babsy.
Babsy said that yesterday.
What I try to do is, if I'm the Titans, okay, I get a receiver that can be a playmaker. He's played all 3 wide receivers position, X, Y, Z. Even when you try to bracket him, he gets away. He makes contested catches. He's built, like Jamar is, built more like a running back than a receiver. And he is deceptively fast because that's the one thing when you talk to opponents or coordinators in this league is, man, I didn't think he was that fast until we had to play him. And it was like, whoa, we knew he could get open. He was a good route runner, but it's his ability to pull away from people. And he's got great peripheral vision. Like he sort of spots it almost like a radar. Okay, incoming, and he moves around really well. And when they needed something, really needed something, he was there. And his deal was, hey, throw it to me. I don't care if they got 2 guys on me. I'm going to catch it. Just put it up there. And Jayden told me that I had to go through this process because I had Ricky Pearsall. at Arizona State.
Yeah.
But he said, he was a different player than Malik because Ricky didn't say a lot. He said, and Malik, he was, man, he said, even if I'm covered, I'm open. Throw it. And it happened right before, I think this was as a sophomore. They played Mississippi State. And Mississippi State was rotating coverage on him, double coverage all game long. Late in the game, they needed something. They really needed something. And his deal was, throw it to me. And he came up with 3 catches in a row. And they had people all around him. And he was, and he would just kind of flip the ball to the referee. Okay, yeah, it was easy. Come on. That's just the way he is. He's a very quiet confidence guy. But, man, to think he wasn't even in the conversation at LSU early on and even into midseason. It was late in the process before they got him. And now you're talking about a top 8 receiver in the draft, a top 8 pick in the draft, and the second best wideout, because I give Marvin Harrison Jr. the nod there. I think he's a bigger guy. They do different things out on the field extremely well, and it's close between the two. But man, Malik, when they needed it, he was there.
Well,
and he was just confident in himself that he could make that play.
I want to let people know too. Like you covered both of those guys, Jamar Chase and Malik Nabors. I mean, as closely as anyone could. So for you to say that about Malik really does mean something.
Yeah, he's the close, because I've seen other comps to Jamar, but they didn't have his size. I mean, if you stood them next to one another, basically they are the same looking athlete. They're about the same size, same weight, same foot speed. They kind of do the same things where they sort of lull you a little bit into, oh, yeah, I'll catch that little short pass, 7-8 yards. And then all of a sudden they haul an ass downfield and it's 78 yards. I mean, that's just the way both of them operate. And I think it'll be intriguing on draft day because I do think the one team that may kick the bucket on draft day and unload a lot to get Jayden Daniels is the Las Vegas Raiders. The reasoning why is Antonio Pierce was at Arizona State when Jayden was there. And he has raved about Jayden, that type player. And I don't think anything brings more hope and enthusiasm to a football team as a talented young quarterback, that hope that he can be your guy. Man, you ain't winning squat with defense today. You winning on offense. You better have your offense and ready to roll, and that quarterback's got to play big time. That's what it's all about. And I think for the Raiders, they may try that and unload what they got to unload to get him.
Mike Detillier, WWL Radio in New Orleans, creator of the M&D Draft Report.
Mike, okay, let me stretch out for a second on this one. Another wide receiver, when you talk about talent, and why he's not being mentioned with these guys. Tell me why. Outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Nabors, Roma Dunze, and Brian Thomas Jr. The guy, Jermaine, Jermaine Burton,
yeah, from Alabama.
He pops off the screen when playing, but what is it? Why isn't he being mentioned in the upper echelon of these guys?
I think there's some personality there, okay, that may have rubbed some people the wrong way. Okay, I'll tell you the whole story. Jermaine was an early commit to LSU. He was coming to Baton Rouge. He wanted to play wide receiver U. That was his deal. So the day of the signing, we there in Baton Rouge to cover this, and, Coach O comes out, hey, got all of them but one. I said, who you missed? He said, Burton. I said, what's happening? Going to Georgia. Now, Jermaine Burton is from California, and he signs with Georgia. And he had told him that morning, yeah, I'm signing with LSU. When they called him back, hey, we haven't got anything from you. Coach changed my mind. I'm going to Georgia. And then he spends a little time there, wins the national champ, goes to Alabama. And I agree with you. He is a very talented guy. And his talent level would, in other drafts, would probably put him late first, early second.
Okay.
But Man, I've heard a lot of different things personality-wise. Why he's a little bit of a live wire, no insulation. Some coaches might not really go to that. But as far as talent's concerned, and that's what you're bringing up, he is a very talented young man who has gotten much better as a route runner. He's a big play guy downfield, and he lets you know how good he is. Every play he makes, he lets you know how good he is.
Mike, real quick, a lot of debate about Dallas Turner perhaps at 7 for the Titans. What do you think about him as an edge rusher from Alabama?
He's my top defensive player in this draft class. I knew all about him when he came out of high school. He was a highly recruited football player, goes to Alabama. And Pete Jenkins is there working with the defensive line. Mm-hmm. I told him, I said, Pete, anybody that catch your eye? And, because he just raved about Will Anderson. About, Mike, I think he's going to be a superstar. Mm. And so I told him, anybody else there? He said, yeah, there's a kid here. He said, you ought to see him. And he called him Houston Turner. So he got the cities wrong, but he got the right class. I said, Pete, okay, it's close enough, but it's Dallas. He said, okay, you're right. He said, it's Dallas. He said, damn, I get my cities wrong.
It's the right state.
He was in the neighborhood, and he was like, Mike, he's got a chance to be, he said, I'm not comparing him to Will, but he's got a chance to be a star player, long, lean athlete, and we saw it, his ability to get off the snap and get into the backfield, and it's his closing speed. If it's to a ball carrier or to the quarterback, is very good. He roams the field extremely well. His ability to go east and west, and they've used him in the coverage part of the game. Now, you look at the other edge guys, if you want to put Jared Verse and Latu in there, they were strictly edge guys. They were just coming off the snap. You look at Dallas, a lot of times, they would drop him a little bit in coverage, and then he would sit there in that zone, and he then would kick inside. And that was something Nick thought about. If he's out on the edge and then moving him inside, because a mobile quarterback, if he steps up in the pocket, all of a sudden, guess who's there waiting for him?
Yeah,
Dallas Turner. And I think he's the perfect fit for the Falcons, who they haven't had a top pass rusher since John Abraham. Okay, Vic Beasley did it 1 year. Yeah. One. Sean Abraham, he was a man out on that football field for a couple, 3 teams. So I think that's where he ends up. And for the Titans, for me, unless Malik falls to them, it looks to be that it'll be Joe Alt. And everybody's asked me compare Joe Alt to anybody. I'm not great on the comparison thing. I've done this 40 years. But Joe's unusual because of his build. And here's a 6'7.5" athlete who's, 310, 315.
Was a tight end.
And you would think he's a power player, and he's not. That's not his strength as a player. He's more of an angle leverage type guy, and he uses his size and his long arms real well to steer, especially pass rushers, almost out of the play, completely out of the film. He does a really good job at that. I'd like to see him be a better power player with his hands and his hand punch and kind of move people around. Yeah, but that's not who he is. But my thing is always this. Jim Finks told me this years ago, and Jim been dead for quite a few years now. But when he took over the Saints back in the 80s, we had done a show, and he was like, people talk about mauling people and everything else. He said, you know what I want to be known at the end? Did the guy across from you make a play? If he didn't, he did his job, didn't he? Watch Joe Alt. How many guys made plays against Joe? Ain't many. Now, but that's not what you would think of a 6'7.5", 315-pound guy, former hockey player, okay, basketball guy, tight end. That's not what you would think. So he's taken criticism for not being this power pack player. He's never been. From high school to college, he's never been that guy. He's always been that big angle leverage type player, but his body balance skills, his ability to sink his hips, drop his knees, and kind of move people around and steer them is very impressive. How many 6'7.5" offensive tackles do they have in the NFL? Not many. He's an unusual athlete and a really good one. And so I think, people want the perfect guy. There is no perfect. I've done this for almost 40 years, basically this year. I've never seen a perfect player. Never. Now, Bo Jackson comes close. Goes close. Because on my negatives with Bo that year, somebody actually sent it to me. I wrote the negative on Bo is he's not twins.
Hey, one more.
End of story.
Oh, Bo. Yeah, we can talk about that recruitment at some point. Man, Mike, thank you for the perspective. That was great stuff, man.
Definitely.
I really appreciate it. It's very helpful when looking at